Hello, hello. My name is Brian Curtis, and this is my project on comparing cultures for for public health for winter 2017. And today I'm going to be talking about ourselves, the Philippines mostly, and a little bit about Mexico. So, a lot of people may not know, but Mexico and the Philippines are very, very similar. In fact, there's a derogatory, maybe not so derogatory thing if you like the countries, saying that the Philippines is kind of like the Mexico of the ocean. And that's because they were founded by multicultures that just moved through. And they got a lot of, think of a Chinese and Japanese influence, and then the Spanish came over and just took over and started spreading Catholicism all over the place. Sounds a lot like Mexico, right? And at the end of that, you get this wonderful, crazy group islands with a bunch of native beliefs, a bunch of Chinese and Japanese and other Eastern Asian cultures and foods, and then you get the mixing with the Catholics and the Spanish Armada types. So they do love their paella and coffee. Mexico is the same thing, except it's a little more land-based, so you get a little bit of different foods. But Philippines is very Asian, so there's a lot of seafood and things. But they have beautiful cathedrals and lots and lots and lots of Spanish influence. So, their diet. It's more than just lumpia, people. They got a lot of things they eat. I know lumpia is what they're most famous for and probably what they're most loved for. But they've got Spanish, Austronesian, Malay, Indonesian, Indian, Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, Mexican, and American influence. It means they'll eat about anything, mostly because they're just so spread out and there's a big chasm between the rich and the poor there. They got people living in cathedrals, or going to school in old cathedrals, and they got people living in garbage dumps. So a lot of poor disparities, or income disparities in the Philippines. But the place looks pretty darn nice otherwise. Like most Asian and island cultures, they eat a lot of fish and rice. It's just a staple, especially with the Asian countries' influence on their diet. Because the Spanish came through, they really do love their paellas, although theirs are a little bit different, more seafood based from what it looks like. And like in island cultures, they do like pig. There's a lot of pig, and they spread them around and roast them up, just kind of like the Hawaiians do. Love their sausage and cured beef. Again, that's a Spanish influence. And their chicken and their ox, which is quite Asian. So basically, yeah, island type foods with a little Spanish influence. They have a little bit of everything, very multicultural. They're kind of right there in the middle of all the trade routes. So, languages. Look at all those regions of the Philippines. That's a ton of islands. I don't think you could visit them all even if you lived there. They have official Filipino, which is kind of a mix of the next two, English and Tagalog. Tagalog is insanely difficult to decipher if you're not Filipino. Kind of looks like wingdings to me, but it's a complex and beautiful language. And then there's a bunch that I'm going to butcher here and see if I can figure out how to say, because there was not really a good pronunciation guide I could find. Cebuano, Ilocano, Hiligaynon, Ilonggo, Bicol, Waray, Papanango, and Paganasian, or Pagasinan. Completely foreign languages to me, so I am not sure how you say it, but look how close we are to Malaysia there, and Indonesia, and then up above is definitely going to be some China and Vietnam type things. But Filipino is the official language, and it's kind of built out of a lot of these other ones. And everybody seems to understand it, but again, with these little islands, there's little cultures on all these islands. Very diverse country with native cultures. A lot like Mexico. People think people in Mexico just speak Spanish and Mexican Spanish, but that's not true. There's all kinds of indigenous languages and tribes still running around, and they live like everyday people, modern people, but they have their own belief systems and their own languages. Very, very diverse. I'd say that these kinds of countries, or these two countries, are a lot more diverse than the United States, because the United States, while Southern might sound like a completely different language than Californian, it really isn't, except they have a few different words, like that Californians wouldn't understand, like going down the road a piece, or where the church giving directions by where the church used to be. You just don't do that in California, but there it makes a lot of sense. Window versus winder. Nobody knows where that came from, because we have common ancestors, but it exists. It truly exists, and at least it's not a completely different language with a different writing system and all of that like these are. We can still sort of get along and understand one another. Being that they're a transient country, people will come in and take them over and then leave, and the next people would come in and take over and leave. You have a lot of different religions practiced. A lot mainstream, and a lot of little particular islands, culture, religions. Very diverse. Of course, since they were ruled with an iron fist by the Catholics, again, much like Mexico, 82% of the country is Catholic in the Philippines. 5% is Muslim, and I thought that was pretty interesting, because most of the rest of these are some sort of Christian listed, but there is a Muslim population there, and that might be because of its closeness to Malaysia, which has a much heavier Muslim population. But they seem to get along okay. You don't hear about very many wars going on in the Philippines at the moment, just a lot of civil wars recently. The fun thing about this in the 2000 census, their census by the way, is you have 3 categories of other, unspecified, and none. So we're not sure what that means. Other could be quite diverse. Unspecified seems even less specified than other, I presume. And none is just the lone atheist out there who's upset about something and refuses to be part of everything else. So health police, man, they have some cool tribal stuff. They have this Namamama. Sounds like the Muppets. Phenomena. It's passed down it means that a sickness is passed down from the parents, so it's a genetic one. You have Lihi, which is passed down from eating something while pregnancy. So a pregnant mom eats something and that has some essence, and then their kid gets sick when it comes out. Sumpa is a pasma condition, and pasma is this idea that there's a hot spirits and cold spirits, and they have to be in balance. It's kind of like yin and yang, but you can be too hot or too cold, and you'll be sick, so you got to stay warm. Gaba is a curse from God, whatever God that is, and Namalingo is intervention of a supernatural or mystical being. They believe that there's a lot of evil spirits running around. Again, that's the tribal influence. And Kalub Gios is kind of God's will. God does whatever he wants. It's a little different from the Gaba, but it's he's what they say is like God gives you your blessings and takes them away. So cultural etiquette, it's kind of similar to Western because there's a lot of Western influence. So I'd say, hi, I'm Dr. Brian. I'll be checking your spine today. But it's important in this culture to always start with the good news first and make sure that mom is involved because she runs the entire family. Here's a bunch of sources you can go to. I found some good ones, mainly the CIA website and the Foreign Commonwealth Office. They were the best ones. Thanks, and have a great day.